One of the rebuttals I see to Rey refusing the Palpatine name because of its extremely dark history is that the Skywalker name is just as bad. And yeah, as Palpatine's right hand, Anakin became a terrible person. But there are a number of reasons why the Skywalker and Palpatine names are worlds apart from one another when it comes to what they mean to the galaxy. The legacy of Palpatine pretty much belongs to Darth Sidious alone. We don't know much about his family, and even if we did, would anyone really care? It was Sheev Palpatine who orchestrated a galaxy-wide war, destroyed the Jedi Order, and was ultimately responsible for the exploitation, manipulation, and murder of trillions of people. The rest of his family before him is irrelevant to the galaxy at large, whereas in the case of the Skywalker name, Anakin is a bad apple, but his son is one of the most beloved heroes of all time. And when Anakin turned to evil, he no longer carried the Skywalker name anyways. He was Darth Vader, and very few people even knew that he had once been Anakin Skywalker throughout that time. On the other hand, everyone knew that Palpatine was the ruler of the new galactic empire. So, by the time of the sequels, while some people do know that Vader was Anakin, the legacy of Skywalker lies primarily with Luke and to a lesser degree, Leia. And the reason I say Leia is smaller is because she never took the Skywalker name, and so while many did know who she was by this time, her legacy was still very much tied to the Organas. Luke is the most famous Skywalker. Darth Vader is sort of his own thing, associated more with Palpatine and the Sith than he is with being a Skywalker, and then Ben Solo is sort of like a combination of Leia and Vader because he not only never carried the name, but he also underwent an identity change like Vader when he turned to the dark side, so again, he's not tied all that deeply to the Skywalker legacy in comparison to Luke. We obviously know that Ben and Leia are Skywalkers, and that's important to us and to them and even to Rey, but again, when we're talking about legacy, it's really all about Luke Skywalker. And even if we want to break it down further, there's also the obvious reality that Palpatine manipulated Anakin and Ben into turning to the dark side. He was significantly more evil than either one of them, certainly in the case of Ben Solo. They were both Jedi Knights before their turns, and they were both redeemed and sacrificed themselves to save the galaxy in the end. While it doesn't undo his atrocities as Darth Vader, Anakin's track record as a Jedi is among the best in the entire Order at that time, and it's his actions during that time that are more associated with the Skywalker name. And for Ben, he was literally a Jedi for almost double the amount of time he served the First Order. Again, it doesn't make up for the bad stuff they did, but these guys were good people for a long time and chose to do right in the end. Palpatine was bad from the start, he was bad in the end, and he was bad throughout, and he's the only relevant representative of the name. For Rey to take that name just would not have made any sense from any perspective other than just wanting to live life on extreme hard mode, I guess, which she's already had more than her fair share of. And why is that the case? Oh yeah, because of her evil grandfather who had her parents killed and forced her into a decade plus of misery. Rey has never associated herself with that name, her own father didn't even take that name, her parents didn't want any part of it, and all the man behind the name ever brought her or the rest of the galaxy was pain. Rey announcing herself as a Palpatine after all of that is what really would have made no sense. In terms of what these names mean to the galaxy within the Star Wars universe, there is no comparison. The Palpatine legacy is one of pure darkness and evil. The Skywalker name represents hope, courage, perseverance, and light. And for Rey, the name represents belonging. From the time Rey was about 6 years old, she's been completely on her own, she's never ever had a name even before that, and then the sequel trilogy kicks off, she's now 19 years old, and she finally meets Luke Skywalker. Luke is a galactic legend, and even though he doesn't really treat Rey that well in The Last Jedi, he does become a mentor for her, and he does guide her in the Rise of Skywalker as well. And Leia, who yes, is an Organa by name, but is a Skywalker by blood, takes Rey as her apprentice and trains her for a whole year. And in that 1 year, Leia has a tremendous impact on Rey, both as her teacher and as sort of a motherly figure, because Rey has had no one to this point. And so we navigate to the end of the Rise of Skywalker. Leia is by far the person who Rey has spent the most time with in terms of somebody who could actually give her a name. Rey shows courage and strength, she defeats Palpatine, she does everything that a Skywalker would do, she represents the legacy of the Jedi and of the Skywalkers, and finally she goes to Tatooine Tatooine, she puts the Skywalker lightsabers to rest, and then she is asked for her full name. And Luke and Leia, her mentors, appear off in the distance, and they welcome Rey into their family. They give her the stamp of approval, and they offer her the Skywalker name. And so finally being presented with this sense of belonging, this family that she's never had, Rey proudly accepts this invitation to the Skywalker family. Now, I know there are a few people who say that they would have preferred that Rey take the Solo name. Yes, she was close with Han Solo for a little bit, but she really only knew him for a few days, and she was never offered that name. It really wouldn't have made any sense or been appropriate in any way for Rey to just be like, yeah, I'm Rey Solo. And then I know that some people will think that throwing Ben Solo into that argument will strengthen it, but Rey and Ben Solo never got married, and that's really the only way that would make sense to me. And again, if we want to talk about Ben Solo, the legacy of Skywalker does encompass his life as a Jedi and the things that he did in the end. He's Ben Solo, but everyone knows that he's the nephew of Luke Skywalker. And so Rey is honoring him as well, and the legacy of Anakin too. The Skywalker name is not a name that the galaxy looks down on. Again, it's about the heroic legend that Luke Skywalker is, and then if you want to break it down further, people do know that Leia is a Skywalker, again, another galactic hero, and they do know who Anakin Skywalker was, again, as Anakin Skywalker, another hero, and then we come to Ben Solo, who anyone who knows who Luke and Leia are know that he is related to them, and he is also a Skywalker. But the darkness associated with Kylo Ren and Darth Vader doesn't really carry over to the Skywalker name, certainly not to a degree that's comparable to the Palpatine name by any means. But that is going to wrap things up for me in this video, so thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to drop a like to support the channel, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and remember, the Force will be with you always.